Hey, New Life Church. My name is Michael Hogue. I'm from the Heber Springs campus. So we're going to be continuing as we walk through the book of Acts today. And we're going to be in chapter 22. And so many things have been happening up to this point. So Paul has made the journey to Jerusalem. It was prophesied that he would be bound there. And that's what happened. He started preaching the word and he gets arrested. The commander thought that he was thought that he was Egyptian, was surprised that he could speak Greek. And then he started talking about that he was a Jew. And so when he gets up, so he's arrested. And what he does is he starts to address the people, the same people who were just basically yelling, kill him, kill him. And he starts to speak to them in their own language, in Aramaic. And everyone's kind of shocked and everyone's surprised. And what Paul does here is so awesome. He uses this to bear his testimony. He tells them that he's literally talking about his experience from Saul to Paul and what he encountered. And I love it. He starts out by saying, in verse 3, then Paul said, I am a Jew born in Tarsus. He tells them who he studied under. That was important because that was a name that everybody recognized. He said, as a student, I was carefully trained in our Jewish laws and customs. So he's walking through his history. He's walking through his past. And what he's doing here is he's establishing credibility for himself. That, hey, look, I am educated in the same thing that you are educated in. I know the scriptures. I know the law. This is something that I've been taught. This is something I was raised in. I even act in helping people, helping the Jewish people throw people into prison. And then he starts to go in verse 6. He says, as I was on the road, approaching Damascus about noon, a very bright light from heaven suddenly shone down around me. I fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to me, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Who are you, Lord? I asked. And the voice replied, I am Jesus the Nazarene, the one who you are persecuting. So first of all, I think this is really cool because he kind of stuns them. Like I said, by speaking their language, he establishes, hey, I'm one of you. But then he starts to talk about, this is my personal experience. This is what happened to me. One, I think that's really important for us is I get in lots of discussions and lots of debates with people, whether they are believers or I actually had someone that wanted me to have lunch with their friend who was agnostic, and he had a lot of questions, and I was able to answer his questions. I was able to have the conversation on an intellectual level with him. But what really had, I think, the most impact was when I started to share my personal testimony. Look, that's the most powerful tool in your tool belt, your Christian tool belt, is what has God done in my life? What have I seen? This is who I was. This is what happened. This is who I am now. That 3-minute testimony. And I think that's really cool what happened here. And then people are listening. People are eating it up. They're all engaged with them until in verse 21, it says, but the Lord said to me, go, for I will send you far away to the Gentiles. It's fascinating to me that this is what they had a problem with. Verse 22, it says, the crowd listened until Paul said that word. Then they all began to shout, away with such a fellow. He isn't fit to live. So they started yelling, started calling for him to be killed. The Romans actually pulled him back, arrested him. They ordered him to be lashed because of him causing this disturbance. And then in verse 25, it says, when they tied Paul down to lash him, Paul said to the officer standing there, is it legal for you to whip a Roman citizen who hasn't even been tried? When the officer heard this, he went to the commander and asked, what are you doing? This man is a Roman citizen. He's scared at this point. So the commander went over and asked Paul, tell me, are you a Roman citizen? Yes, I certainly am, Paul replied. I am too, the commander muttered, and it cost me plenty. Paul answered, but I am a citizen by birth. The soldiers who were about to interrogate Paul quickly withdrew when they had heard that he was a Roman citizen, and the commander was frightened because he had ordered him bound and whipped. Okay, a couple things here. There's really only 3 ways to become a Roman citizen. One, you had to be born there. This is what Paul said, I was from birth. I was born there. Two, you had to serve a period of time in the Roman military. This is what it was like the step, you go through all this process here, and after its completion, you can get Roman citizenship or by paying a large amount of money for it. The important thing about Roman citizenship is, we take for granted here in the United States, we have the Bill of Rights, we have all these things, these rights that are granted to us. That was only the case in there if you were a Roman citizen. So the rulers that were over this area here, basically for their own amusement, they could beat, they could torture, they could publicly execute all of these different people, and that was completely legal unless it was a Roman citizen. So they were all scared because had they beaten Paul, flogged him, with him being a Roman citizen, they could actually be removed from their position. So this was a really big deal here. So why is this important to us? I think, this is really cool because this kind of sets up Paul's journey into Rome, where he goes into prison and he writes all the different letters to the different churches where we get a lot of our New Testament scriptures from. But I think what's really cool about this is Paul had two different times during this chapter where he says, no, I'm this. And then he says, no, I'm this. Oftentimes, what God wants to use in your life is something that you already have. It's an experience. It's something you were gifted with, something you've been walking with maybe for decades that you didn't even know. It's something that God orchestrated that in your past to be part of it. And now he's going to use it. So, you don't have to be something else for God to use you, for you to do God's work, to grow his kingdom. He's going to use what he's already equipped you with. In Paul's case, being both of Jewish descent and being a Roman citizen. So that's all we have, guys, today. Excited to continue through this book, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Have a blessed day.